Each time you step into the Firebird Studios to record something at a recording station, you want to be aware of how the setup is at each station. And while each station will have a unique setup for it, for the most part, the setup will be similar, and these will be things that you'll look for. It is recommended that you identify one person in the group to be the sound engineer so that they can ultimately be responsible for making sure that all of the equipment is connected and recording before you begin recording quality content. This video is going to briefly show you what you're looking for when you step into Firebird Studios to begin your recording. As you step into the studio, one of the things you'll notice right away is the equipment on the table. So let's go through that. Here you'll see we have a computer. That computer is used to record the sound and it runs software. In Firebird Studios, we use Macs and GarageBand. The next thing you'll notice is that there's a soundboard on the screen. That soundboard is used to bring all of the sound together to get an appropriate level for each microphone input or audio input before it goes into the computer. This is what the sound engineer is listening to as recording is taking place. And then you'll see different microphone setups. They're pictured here like boxes, but instead they actually are microphones on a boom with a pop diffuser and a shock mount on them. You can move these microphones around to suit your needs based on height and comfort. Now, the thing that we'll look for is to make sure that each of these are connected. And one of the things that can feel somewhat overwhelming is all of the cabling that's set up on the table. Here's what you're looking for. Coming out of each microphone should be a black cable. That black cable will be plugged into the soundboard. Each one will establish a channel on the soundboard. So in this case, microphone 1 is called microphone 1 because it's plugged into the first channel on the soundboard. Microphone 2, if you follow the line all the way back, will be plugged into microphone 2 on the soundboard. In this case, you can have up to 4 different plugins on the soundboard, although most will come with 2 or 3. From there, you'll notice that there's some wiring that leads out of the soundboard and into the computer. This is important because it takes the sound moving from each of the microphones, it mixes it together in the mixer or the soundboard, it moves that sound over to an output, and it sends that sound into the computer. This is where the sound is recorded by something like GarageBand. Finally, you'll see some plugins that'll lead to a speaker of some sort. Most often in the lab, these speakers are hanging overhead and they're directional sound speakers. If yours is not plugged into a playback speaker, then your computer is also serving as the playback speaker. The playback speaker simply means that if you want to listen to the project as a group to see what you've recorded, when you hit play, sound will come out of the playback speaker for everyone to hear. Again, it's important to note the sound is coming out of the computer and going into that playback speaker. So that's the basic setup that you'll run into anytime you step into the lab. There's just a few more important checks you'll want to make sure are working before you get recorded. Each microphone has an on switch, and you want to make sure that that microphone's on switch is checked on and ready to move forward. Also, there will be a cable coming out of the microphone. This is called an XLR cable, and you'll want to make sure that it's plugged into the soundboard appropriately. Here you can see a zoomed-in view of what the XLR cable looks like right here. Finally, you'll notice what channel it's on. In this case, it is on 1, and so something that you may want to do is simply put a piece of painter's tape down and put the number 1 on the soundboard so that you can identify what microphone number 1 is. At the same point, you might want to put a piece of painter's tape here as well, near the microphone, just so that you can identify that this is microphone 1 to make it easy for you later. Finally, you want to make sure that your sound is turned up appropriately for each channel. This volume button controls the volume for each microphone. So you want to make sure that each microphone is turned on and that you can hear it appropriately in your headphones if you're the sound producer. Finally, let's just talk about the computer. Most of the lab tables will be set up with a Mac computer. And if you haven't signed in with a Mac before, it's important to note that you'll sign in as other or guest, use your district username and password, the same that you use for signing into Google, and you'll be able to start recording. On these computers, we use GarageBand. GarageBand is a powerful editing tool, and the beauty of it is when you're done recording in the studio, you can easily airdrop your file from your computer to your iPad to continue the editing work outside of the studio. We think this workflow will make it much easier for you to move files from the computer to your iPad so that you can take the time needed to really edit great podcasts and audio recordings. And that's it. That's all you need to know to get up and running with our basic audio recording podcast lab setup.